Greetings and welcome to the Halloween edition of the Sliders Review. And I'm here today to talk to you about, did Roberto Aguirre Sacasa rip off that of Andrew Martin Slasher Season 1 Executioner for the premise of Pretty Little Liars Original Sin, the first season to be exact. So, I rarely talk about Slasher Season 1 on my channel. That's because I seen it only once on Netflix many years ago when it came out. And even though I enjoyed it and I love it and I recommend it, I don't remember much of anything from it. I remember how the killer looked. I remember two of the stars that was in it, and that's about it. And I knew certain elements of it, but I couldn't remember much about it. So that's why I've never really truly ever reviewed it or talked about it. And when I did a series rundown review of recommending the slasher television series, I just gave the gist. But like I said before, I don't remember much. But I went a little bit more detail into the other seasons because those I remember a bit more. But now I have recently just bought it on DVD and I've been watching it and I'm almost done and I'm gonna talk about it. And it took me a long time to buy it on DVD only because I wanted to make 100% sure I really did love and enjoy this season before I bought it on DVD. So I always planned on rewatching it, but no way I couldn't because I hate Netflix and I refuse to watch them. So I'm all whatever, I'm just gonna take a chance and buy it on DVD. And so yeah. And so as I'm watching it, in my head, I'm just kind of this is what Pretty Little Liars Original Sin should have been. And then I stopped and I contemplated myself. Is it possible that Roberto saw this show and thought, wow, I could just copy this formula and just emulate it into my show, which is something he does with a lot of his projects. Because he was probably just kind of man, that's a great idea. I can turn it around and add this and add that and blah blah and make this the basis of my first season. Because when you watch season 2 of Pretty Little Liars, which is retitled Summer School, there are a lot of elements, and I mean a lot of elements, ripped from all the Scream movies. 2 and probably 5 to be more exact, but there are elements from other movies. Heck, he even used the Scream theme song for an episode of Pretty Little Liars Summer School. That was a direct copy, and it's just kind of how he is. It's he thinks he's this huge horror dude, and he just cherry picks from other properties and inserts them into his show. Like the way, I can't remember this character's name now. Whoever Chandler plays, Tabby, that's it. The girl who acts like Randy. She killed the killer very similar with a pitchfork like in that one horror movie and stuff. So we know that he's not original and he tends to just he'll see something, be oh, it's an homage and everything, and then emulate it in his show. And homages is one thing, but just copying is just completely different. And when you look at the motivations of the slasher in that, the TV show Slasher Executioner, you start to see that the A from Original Sin, Archie and everything, and the motivations of his father are very similar to what happened in season 1 of Slasher. And it's just too, uncanny to be a coincidence and everything. My bad, Aaron Martin, not Andrew Martin. Now, both Aaron and Roberto have never worked on the same project together. Never as a producer, never as a writer, never as an additional crew member. But in Hollywood, tons of people know each other that you don't expect to know each other. So there is the possibility they might know each other but have never worked together. But you never know. But the similarities between the two shows, of course, are completely different. One's written good and the other is not. The Pretty Little Liars Original Sin was just never written well, and neither was Summer School. But Slasher season 1 through 3 was pretty good, except for the last 2 seasons. Now, why do I feel there's a possibility that Roberto either got inspiration, ripped off, or an homage to that of Slasher season 1 is the similarities between the motivation of the killers. So, in Pretty Little Liars Original Sin, the killer is Archie, who goes by A. He's this big, hulking looking Mike Myers, Jason Voorhees type person, which is literally ripped off from both person with the outfits and always wearing a mask and never revealing the face. Supposedly, he has a face that's so mangled, that's why he wears a mask, and he's literally a Mike Myers and Jason ripoff. There is nothing original about him. Now, his motivation, he does whatever his father tells him. If his father tells him to go kill this person, he will go kill that person. Why? Because they want revenge. Because Archie's sister, she was assaulted, her friends didn't believe her, they teased her, and then she ended up dead. So the father wants revenge on his daughter's friends and everything, right? And so, because of that, instead of going after the mothers for some dumb reason, Roberto decided, hey, wouldn't it be more interesting to wait about 20 something years and go after their daughters? That is stupid right there. And this is why one of the reasons why this show sucks. Anyway. So Archie is going after these girls because of the sins of which their mothers committed, things that they did in their past that was so atrocious they deserve to die in the eyes of the father. And so basically that's what it is. That's who only Archie's going after. But then two of the girls, when he was going after them, they realize, hey, wait, he really only goes after people who have done people wrong. So they tell him, go after Chip, because Chip assaulted both of them at a party and spiked their drinks and stuff like that. So he turns around and goes after Chip. So technically he is a killer who goes after people who has wronged other people and stuff. And eventually, at the end, he does go after their mothers and stuff, but not really. It's mostly just for some bizarre reason he goes after the daughters. But he is a killer who goes after people who has harmed people. Until season 2, when he just goes on a killing spree and killing the remainder season 1 recurring cast. Why? Because Roberto said, forget season 1. We're going to redo everything in season 2 with a brand new cast and blah, blah, blah. Well, it still has the same girls in it, but he's going to bring in additional cast members and just say, screw season 1. Let's just forget all about it. Because that's Roberto for you. That is literally him for you. And so then it changed the motive of why, Archie does what he does, but then he killed Dr. Sullivan. And technically, I guess he wanted revenge for her because she's using the girls to write an all-tell-all book. Either way, it's just stupid. Now, let's get to Slasher Season 1, Executioner, and the motivation behind that killer. The Executioner and Slasher pretty much is cleaning up the city and goes after people who committed the 7 deadly sins, as instructed by that of his father. So pretty much if you committed one of those deadly sins, he will go after you and off you and stuff. So, and it's pretty much like, and some of the people that he go after is the result of this one girl going missing. So because they did her wrong, he goes after them. You know what? this actually goes beyond the killers. Now that I think about it, there are way more similarities and everything. This is uncanny. Okay, so both mothers go insane because of what happened to their daughters, and because of what happened to their daughters set up the events of what the show is about many years ago. That's crazy because, like, the one girl went missing in Slasher, and then the other girl got assaulted and died in, like, the Pretty Little Liars reboot. And both moms went insane because it was later revealed that the mom from Pretty Little Liars went to, like, an insane asylum and stuff. And she also ended up homeless. Both shows have a sheriff or a police chief who's a head of the department who messes around with underage kids and stuff. The one from Slasher kidnapped a young girl and forced her to have his baby and put her down in his basement. And the one from Pretty Little Liars Original Sin, he abused his power by making, like, the underage kids that are in juvie, like, do sexual favors for him. And if not, then he'll make their life miserable while they're locked up. In both shows, in the very first episode, at the very opening, like, the mothers of the main final girl end up dying as a result of the killer. In Pretty Little Liars, that mom took her own life, and then in Slasher, the killer killed his baby mama and stuff. In both shows, you think the mom is innocent, but then in a flashback, you realize she's, like, terrible and did a bad thing that, helped cause, like, some of these killings to happen. In Pretty Little Liars Original Sin, the mom was like a bully and bullied the girl and everything. And in Slasher, she was a prostitute, and her husband blackmailed this pastor after he slept with her and stuff. But this last one is a doozy, which makes me now believe that Roberto 100% saw this show and copied it. Also, in both shows, there are two girls that are pregnant or were pregnant and stuff as a result of being, like, sexually assaulted. In Slasher, I told you that one teenage girl went missing by that police officer, and he got her impregnated and they had a child together. And Pretty Little Liars, Chip assaulted Imogen and she had his baby. Come on now. No, this is too... No. This can't be a coincidence. It can't be a coincidence. It just can't be. There are too many similarities. And this is a little bit of a stretch, but not really. So, like, both final girls, right? At some point, they have some type of romantic interest, affiliation with the bad person from the show. So, like, in Pretty Little Liars, I believe, been a while, but I believe Chip and Imogen, they started to kind of date a little bit before she knew he is the one who assaulted her. In Slasher, the new killer, the very, very new killer who's doing all the killings and stuff, because the original one's locked up, he takes a romantic interest in the final girl. And to top it all off, Sarah, the final girl, falls back for the killer. Nah, man. Nah, this is just... There's too many coincidences. Even both final girls' dad, biological fathers, are terrible people. In Pretty Little Liars, Imogen's dad just pretty much abandoned her and their family. And, he just didn't want nothing to do with them, but now they're kind of reconciling a little bit. But then, that's another thing, they reconciled and everything. But then, in Slasher, the main final girl, her dad, ended up murdering her mother and stepfather, and they later reconciled a little bit. This is odd. This is too odd. Now this one's a little bit more of a stretch, but in both shows there are the extreme religious people and stuff. So like, there's this like one pastor who is like, well, of course he's a pastor, so he's a holy man. And he also constantly visit the killer who killed his friends and slashed the side of his face and slasher, and also the killer is doing the whole Zodiac thing. But then now in Pretty Little Liars, Kelly's whole family is super religious. And in season 2, we get to see more of that religion like unfold. And even to the point where like when they started doing advertisements for season 2 of Pretty Little Liars, they had this picture which is kind of like, this apocalyptic biblical thing, and so like, bloody rose and people worshiping her in kind of like a religious cult kind of way. It's a bit of a stretch, but still it's just weird that both shows will have this very high strong religious aspect to them, because in the original Pretty Little Liars they never had really dealt in the religion at all. It's just odd that, this new show, Pretty Little Liars Original Sin, would dive into like a religious aspect similar to how Slasher did. Now, this one's a little bit of a stretch too, but both final girls end up going back home after being separated for a long time. So, like in Slasher, the main character, she was born in her house because the killer killed her mom and stepdad and cut her out the womb. And so she lived with her grandma in town, but then later moved with her husband, but then moved back into her original home. Then in Pretty Little Liars, Imogen lived with her mom at their home until her mom took her life. Then she would go live with Tabby's mom. And then she stayed with Tabby for like ever and ever and ever. But then in the final climax of season 1, she heads back to her home to escape like, the killer and everything like that. Because her mom taught her how to hide here and hide there. And then in season 2, they brought her back to her house for one episode. So it is kind of odd that the main final girl would go back to her original home at some point in like the season after being separated from her original home. This is too much of a coincidence. It has to be. There's no way Roberto is that smart. When the killer is revealed in Slasher, it's also revealed that his accomplice is his father. So it's because of his father he's doing all this bad stuff. That is what happened in Pretty Little Liars Original Sin. Archie did what he did because his father instructed him. You've got to be kidding me. I would have been talked about this if I would have remembered what happened in Slasher season 1. But since it's been so many years, I think around 8 years or so, I completely forgot what happened in Slasher season 1 until I just rewatched it now. And I'm like, holy crap. This man literally cherry-picked certain elements of this show and placed it in his. I'm almost positive that is what he did. Maybe, just maybe, and I mean maybe, it's a coincidence. Maybe, two minds think alike. But no, there's too many similarities between these two shows. And we know he's not an original person. The man has never produced an original show or movie. All of his stuff is either reboots or adaptations of previous works and everything. Heck, even Riverdale, is based on the Archie comics. And of course, he bought out the comics and stuff, so he gets to run them. In Riverdale, the whole murder mystery thing wasn't even his idea. It was Greg Berlanti's. How in the world does this man constantly gets work when all he does is like just does stuff that other people do and probably claims, oh, it's an homage and everything. Nah, man, you just not original. Like, you suck. Seriously. Because I, honest to God, like, there's too many similarities between these two shows. It is uncanny. And the fact that the mom is not innocent and is a bad person, the fact that, like, the killer, accomplice is his own dad. Seriously. That's the biggest smoking gun of them all. All right, well, I shall talk to y'all later. Bye.